Beneath the scorching expanse of the Giza Plateau, past the steady flow of tourists and the long legacy of excavation, there lies a claim that has stirred the archaeological world. In March 2025, a research team announced what might be one of the most extraordinary discoveries in modern archaeology: a vast underground complex hidden beneath Egypt's pyramids. Using radar imaging, the group identified what appeared to be extensive chambers, spiral staircases, long corridors, and an ancient water system buried deep under the stones of the monuments that have stood for over 4,000 years. The announcement has reignited speculation. Could this be the fabled Hall of Records, the mythical archive said to be sealed beneath the sands? Since the fall of Atlantis, the research group, led by Corrado Malanga, claimed to have used synthetic aperture radar, SAR, to scan beneath the plateau, revealing what they interpret as orderly architectural features: columns, rooms, interlinked corridors. But the excitement was quickly met with skepticism. Renowned Egyptologist Zahi Hawass dismissed the findings as unscientific and potentially misleading. The study has not been peer-reviewed. The visuals shown to the public were AI-generated mock-ups, and the lead researcher has a history of controversial claims in fringe science. So what are we really looking at? Genuine evidence of a vast, forgotten network beneath one of the most studied archaeological sites on Earth? Or the latest chapter in myth-chasing and speculative interpretation? In the shifting sands at the base of the pyramids, one of the most provocative claims of recent years took shape. The team of international researchers, including Corrado Malanga, University of Pisa, and Filippo Biondi, University of Strathclyde, Scotland, set out to explore a possibility long whispered in fringe circles, that beneath the world's most iconic monuments lies something hidden, deliberate, and forgotten. Their mission was built around technology, not myth. Instead of excavation, they used synthetic aperture radar, SAR, a sophisticated imaging technique capable of penetrating the Earth's surface and detecting subsurface structures. Originally employed in geological studies and planetary exploration, the technology was now turned toward one of humanity's oldest mysteries. Almost immediately, the data began returning anomalies. At first, they appeared as irregular voids and density changes in the radar images. Then patterns emerged: linear alignments, symmetrical features, and finally something far more dramatic. The team reported 8 massive vertical shafts, each descending deep beneath the pyramid's bedrock. According to their data, the shafts stretched down more than 2,100 feet, approximately 640 meters, nearly twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. Their scale was staggering, but it was the precision of the design that caught the researchers' attention. The walls appeared too smooth, the alignment too intentional to be natural voids or collapsed wells, and then there were spiral formations. Encircling each shaft were corkscrew-like ramps or staircases. The radar imagery revealed these spirals tightly wound around the shafts, suggesting deliberate passageways into the earth. If true, this would transform our understanding of the Giza site, a network of shafts and staircases plunging deep beneath the plateau. Not merely burial chambers or tunnels. If the claim is true, the mental image becomes almost cinematic. Ancient figures, priests, engineers or initiates descending spiraling stone staircases by torchlight, plunging beneath the bedrock of the Giza Plateau until they vanish into corridors of a subterranean world long forgotten. Then the chambers appear. At the base of 2 of the shafts, the radar team described structures unlike anything yet identified on the plateau. Cube-shaped rooms, each about 80 meters wide on a side. These weren't narrow tunnels or crude caverns. They were vast spaces constructed with striking exactness, each nearly the size of a modern city block, square in plan, with crisp edges and consistent depth. It looked as though someone had carved a geometric vault directly out of living bedrock. But for what purpose? The researchers floated multiple theories. These large chambers could have been tombs, They might have served as massive ceremonial halls or hidden temples. Or in more speculative lines of thought, they could have been ancient vaults, repositories of esoteric or sacred knowledge protected from time, warfare, and decay. As the scans progressed, even more appeared. Surrounding the primary shafts and cubic rooms, the data began to map out 5 additional structures. These weren't standalone rooms. They seemed to be multi-layered, overlapping, and linked by what appeared to be corridors and passageways. Some routes were straight, others gently curved toward intersection nodes. What emerged was not a fragment but a layout, a system, a network. This was no random cluster of voids. It appeared meticulously planned. The alignment with the surface structures above wasn't coincidental either. Several of the chambers beneath aligned almost precisely with features on the Giza plateau, implying that whoever built above may have built below too. This suggests the subterranean layout wasn't separate from the pyramid complex. It was an extension of it. One of the most striking proposals from the study is that the Giza plateau may have operated as a 2-layered system, monumental structures above ground and a hidden infrastructure below. If so, this doesn't just change our interpretation of the pyramids, it reframes them. The pyramids might not have been isolated tombs or single monuments, but outward manifestations of a much deeper, concealed network. A visible world for all, and a hidden world for a select few. And this subterranean network might have been built with a purpose, either to preserve something, to protect it, or possibly to enable something. Perhaps it was functional, perhaps spiritual, or perhaps it was some blend of both. What makes the claim so gripping isn't just the scale of the structures the team reports finding. It's the silence around them. No known records, no map, no mention in historical texts. These hidden chambers, if they exist, have gone entirely undetected for thousands of years, buried under one of the most studied archaeological sites on Earth. The researchers remain cautiously modest. They have not yet confirmed the material, composition, or dating of these alleged structures. Further investigation is needed. But so far, they note the recurring geometry and precise alignment, which they argue speak against the idea that these are natural formations. To outside observers, the implications are staggering. A hidden world beneath Giza, massive in scale, deliberate in design, entirely undocumented. One that challenges everything we thought we knew about the plateau. Who built it, when, and for what reason? And then there is another element, something fluid rather than solid, that appears to stir in the data. Something not simply a chamber or corridor, but perhaps a water system or hydraulic structure, connected with the subterranean architecture in ways that hint at functions beyond burial or ritual. Hidden not within the chambers themselves, but in the spaces between them, the researchers began to notice something new. Subtle indentations, narrow grooves, and faint linear patterns ran through the radar imagery, features that didn't align with known architectural supports or staircases. Instead, they resembled something far more intriguing: ancient water systems. Veins of fluid movement carved through the stone. These slender channels seemed to trace pathways of flowing water, either through deliberately cut conduits or natural fissures adapted for human use. Some followed the natural slope of the terrain. Others sliced through solid bedrock with precision that hinted at deliberate engineering. They weren't random or chaotic. They connected key features of the supposed subterranean complex: spiral staircases, cube-shaped chambers, and multi-level halls, forming an integrated system. As if water once played a central role in whatever purpose this hidden structure served. For archaeologists, the mention of water beneath Egypt's desert sands is never trivial. In ancient Egypt, water was far more than a necessity. It was mythology, cosmology, and life itself. The Nile wasn't just a river. It was the axis of creation, commerce, and renewal. So when evidence of ancient water channels appears near monuments as significant as the pyramids, scholars pay attention. The researchers proposed that this network of subterranean waterways might once have connected to the Nile or to ancient reservoirs closer to the plateau, back when the region's climate and landscape were different. If true, the system could have served multiple purposes: transporting materials, regulating temperature, or facilitating ritual processions. Some Egyptologists have long theorized that water transport was crucial in moving massive limestone blocks during pyramid construction, but these new findings suggest something deeper. Perhaps water didn't just move across the surface, but beneath it, part of a complex hydraulic infrastructure hidden under the sand. Beyond engineering, the symbolic dimension is impossible to ignore. In Egyptian cosmology, water represented the primordial chaos, Nun, the infinite ocean from which all creation emerged. The first mound of earth, the Benben, rose from these waters, marking the dawn of existence. To descend into the depths, surrounded by water, could have symbolized a return to the beginning, a ritual journey through creation and rebirth. If this hidden network truly integrated water, one can imagine the scene: initiates descending spiral staircases into the cool darkness, torches flickering against damp walls, the faint trickle of water echoing through stone corridors. Perhaps these channels weren't meant for goods at all, but for souls, symbolic rivers guiding initiates through a physical simulation of the Egyptian underworld, the Duat. Some of the radar patterns even seem to converge near the massive cube-shaped chambers, suggesting an intentional relationship between water flow and architecture. Researchers noted possible signs of erosion or long-term water contact, subtle, patterned, and controlled rather than destructive. The cuts looked purposeful, some carved directly into the stone, others adapted from natural aquifers to serve human needs. And then there's the possibility of acoustics. In ancient underground structures across the world, from Malta's Halsaflieni Hypogeum to the oracle chamber at Delphi, water and sound appear intertwined. Flowing water can create resonance, a low hum or rhythmic pulse that amplifies within stone chambers. Could the same principle have applied here? Perhaps the ancient builders used the flow of water to enhance ritual atmosphere, creating the illusion of the earth itself speaking. There's also the pragmatic side. If humans ever worked, stored goods, or performed rites down here, water would have been vital for drinking, cooling, and ventilation. In the desert's harsh environment, an underground water system could have sustained life and activity far longer than surface conditions would allow. Whatever its purpose, practical, spiritual, or both, the presence of these water channels deep beneath Giza adds another haunting layer to the mystery. Were they remnants of an ancient engineering marvel, or traces of a sacred design meant to echo creation itself? The answer, like the water that may once flowed there, remains hidden beneath the sands. It's the kind of discovery that could rewrite the story of Giza. Water, once invisible, silent and forgotten, now re-emerges as a possible key to understanding the mysteries buried beneath the plateau. The radar scans suggest that this vast underground system may have been more than stone and geometry. It may have breathed with water, a living network that stabilized temperature, cooled the subterranean chambers by day, and released warmth by night. The idea that an entire underground complex lies hidden beneath Giza is extraordinary on its own. But the notion that this system might have functioned through water, whether for engineering, ceremony, or symbolism, adds an entirely new dimension to the mystery. So far, the researchers have not confirmed whether any of these channels still contain traces of moisture or mineral sediment. Yet if future studies uncover evidence of ancient water flow through soil sampling, isotopic analysis, or deeper radar imaging, the implications could be enormous. Water leaves its own memory, in layers of sediment, in mineral residue, in the erosion of stone. If traces of ancient flow are detected, scientists could determine not just how the channels were used, but when. For the first time, the age of the subterranean network could be measured independently of the structures above. It could reveal a timeline for when these passages were carved, or when they last carried the lifeblood of the plateau. The pyramids have long resisted precise dating. But perhaps the answers lie not in their towering stones, but in the veins of forgotten waterways below, rivers of time that still whisper secrets of their builders. Beneath the familiar desert sand and limestone blocks, a new element now flows through the enigma of Giza, water, invisible yet eternal, carrying echoes of rituals, architecture, and belief systems that stretch far beyond our imagination. Was this hydraulic design purely functional, an ancient cooling or transport system, or was it foundational, part of a far older and more esoteric purpose lost to recorded history? As the scans revealed more detail, shafts, chambers, corridors, and unmistakable signs of deliberate engineering, a haunting idea began to resurface. A legend long dismissed as fantasy, yet never entirely silenced, the Hall of Records. According to ancient esoteric traditions, the Hall of Records is said to be a vast underground archive, a repository of knowledge left by a lost civilization. Some link it to Atlantis. Others describe it as a sacred vault containing humanity's forgotten origins, sealed beneath the sands until the world is ready to remember. The myth was famously popularized by the American mystic Edgar Cayce, who in the early 20th century predicted that a hidden chamber near the Great Pyramid would one day be uncovered, holding the written history of a pre-dynastic civilization that vanished before time began. Mainstream archaeology has long dismissed Cayce's visions as spiritual allegory. Yet the legend persisted quietly, stubbornly, and now, with the discovery of deep geometric structures precisely where such legends place them, the speculation burns anew. Could these vast, cube-shaped rooms and spiral shafts be more than architectural anomalies? Could they be the remnants of a library, lost to history, containing scrolls, tablets, or a record of knowledge predating known civilization? What makes the possibility so captivating isn't only the data, it's the context. These newly detected structures lie directly beneath some of the most symbolically charged monuments on Earth. Their symmetry, alignment, and scale seem far too deliberate to ignore. Whether they prove to be ritual chambers, hydraulic systems, or repositories of forgotten wisdom, their existence invites a complete re-evaluation of the Giza Plateau and its purpose. And what made all this possible was not a shovel, but waves of energy pulsing through the Earth. Synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, opened this hidden world to modern eyes. Unlike conventional ground-penetrating radar, which struggles with depth and resolution, SAR can probe hundreds of meters below the surface, producing high-definition, layered images of density variations and structural forms. Mounted on satellites or aircraft, it sends radar pulses toward the ground and measures their echoes, reconstructing a three-dimensional view of what lies beneath, without disturbing a single grain of sand. In the right conditions, SAR can reveal voids, corridors, and even architectural geometry buried deep within solid rock. In this case, it allowed researchers to scan thousands of meters across and hundreds of meters down, mapping what appears to be one of the most intricate and unexpected subsurface formations ever detected at Giza, what those radar images revealed. Next left even seasoned archaeologists speechless. What the scans revealed next wasn't just the presence of empty space, it was order, clear lines, symmetry, connectivity. The radar images showed patterns that nature rarely creates, mirrored forms, geometric precision, structures that seemed to echo each other across the underground landscape. These weren't the chaotic contours of caves or fractures in stone. They were deliberate, designed spaces, conceived and executed with intent. Modern archaeology increasingly relies on methods that can see the past without disturbing it. And in this case, synthetic aperture radar acted like a time machine, peeling back layers of history without breaking the surface. Each scan deepened the mystery. What began as faint anomalies evolved into a portrait of something vast and complex, a hidden world mapped in shadows and stone. The image that emerged was staggering. Shafts and spirals, immense chambers, corridors weaving through the earth like veins of a forgotten city. Together, they formed something greater than the sum of their parts. A blueprint, a message from the deep past whispering, "Look closer." What struck both researchers and onlookers was the intentionality. Nothing about these formations appeared random. Every angle, every connection hinted at a mastery of space, balance, and perhaps even energy. Beneath the Great Pyramids, already some of the most geometrically perfect structures ever built, there seemed to exist a mirror world, one that descended where the pyramids rose. To some, the idea carried a poetic symmetry, the pyramids reaching upward toward the divine, while below them, another realm descended into the underworld, a reflection of ancient Egyptian duality. Life and death, day and night, Upper and Lower Egypt, heaven and earth. Perhaps, they speculated, the pyramid complex itself was designed as a physical manifestation of that cosmic balance. As the radar continued its sweep, the shapes became clearer, almost architectural. The resulting images looked like blueprints for something impossible, a network that should not exist at this scale, at this depth, or with such sophistication, especially if it predates known dynastic construction. Yet the data persisted, refusing to align with conventional explanations, and here, at the edge of discovery, the line between archaeology and imagination blurred, not recklessly, but inevitably. When confronted with the unknown, the human mind begins to fill in the blanks. Who built it? Why? What purpose did it serve? The claims of a vast underground city beneath Giza have ignited fascination and fierce debate in equal measure. While the preliminary data suggest an intricate subterranean system, many scholars urge caution, stressing the need for verified, peer-reviewed evidence before rewriting history. Among the skeptics is Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's most renowned archaeologist and former Minister of Antiquities. He has dismissed the claims as fake news, citing the absence of official permits or sanctioned excavations beneath the Khafra pyramid. There is no scientific evidence to support these rumors, Hawass stated, emphasizing that no authorized missions are currently operating at the site. The team's use of synthetic aperture radar, SAR, has also drawn criticism. Professor Lawrence Conyers, a radar and archaeology specialist at the University of Denver, questioned whether the technology is capable of detecting large structures at such depths. Identifying small voids or density shifts is possible, he said, but mapping an entire underground city is a huge exaggeration. Compounding skepticism is the lack of peer-reviewed publication. In science, transparency and reproducibility are everything. Without data shared for independent review, the findings remain unverified. The researchers, Professors Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi, have yet to release their raw datasets or methodology for external analysis, further fueling doubt. To be fair, this isn't the first time Giza has been the focus of subterranean speculation. The Scan Pyramids project in 2017 used muon radiography to detect a massive internal void within the Great Pyramid, later dubbed the Big Void. Though its purpose remains unknown, it proved that hidden spaces can and do exist within these monuments. And then there's the legend that never dies. The Hall of Records, the mythical archive said to be buried beneath the Sphinx or the pyramids, holding the lost knowledge of Atlantis or an earlier civilization. Despite numerous investigations, no credible evidence has ever confirmed its existence. These recurring stories reveal a deeper truth. The human hunger for discovery often outpaces the slow pace of science. For every cautious academic voice, there are thousands captivated by what might lie just beyond reach. But as every serious archaeologist reminds us, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary proof. The debate over a hidden city beneath Giza underscores the delicate balance between imagination and evidence. Technologies like SAR hold incredible promise for non-invasive exploration, but their results must be handled with discipline, peer scrutiny, and skepticism. Until such standards are met, these latest findings, however tantalizing, remain speculative, awaiting the rigorous testing that could either confirm a revelation or dissolve a mirage. And so, the Giza Plateau endures, majestic, mysterious, and unwilling to surrender its final secrets. Even after centuries of excavation, it still challenges us with unanswered questions. The subterranean chamber beneath the Great Pyramid, for example, remains one of the site's most enigmatic features. Rough-hewn and unfinished, it sits far below the polished grandeur of the king's and queen's chambers, carved directly into the bedrock, as though the builders began and then abruptly stopped. Was it an abandoned burial chamber, a symbolic descent into the underworld, or part of a hidden system yet undiscovered? The absence of definitive answers only deepens its allure, and just as researchers gaze downward, searching the bedrock for meaning, others have turned their eyes upward. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project shocked the world with the discovery of a massive, sealed cavity, roughly 30 meters long, hidden above the Grand Gallery. Using muon tomography, a technology that tracks subatomic particles as they pass through solid stone, scientists detected a void that had remained untouched for over 4,500 years. It was no air pocket or structural flaw. It was space, real, deliberate, and unexplained. What it was built for remains one of the most profound archaeological mysteries of our time. If so, what purpose could it serve? The location of the void only deepened the mystery. The Grand Gallery is one of the most precise and awe-inspiring features within the Great Pyramid. A steep, narrow passage lined with corbelled stone blocks that lead upward toward the king's chamber. That such a vast, hidden cavity would rest directly above it, unseen for millennia, seemed almost impossible. And yet there it was, verified by 3 separate research teams using independent scanning technologies. A chamber, a corridor, or perhaps something else entirely, a hollow space suspended above one of the most studied architectural structures on Earth. Some researchers, keeping to scientific caution, proposed pragmatic explanations. Perhaps it was nothing more than a stress-relieving cavity, a structural void designed to lighten the immense weight pressing down on the gallery below. But others were not so easily satisfied. They pointed to its symmetry, its scale, its isolation, and its complete lack of any known access point. There was no entry, no tunnel, no connection. It was as if it had been built not to be reached, and perhaps not even to be found. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities officially acknowledged the discovery, but refrained from endorsing any specific theory. No excavation permits were issued. No probes, no cameras, no drills. For now, the space remains sealed, untouched, a secret written into stone, waiting in silence above the Grand Gallery. If the void invites us to wonder what else lies unseen inside the Great Pyramid, then another enigma, one visible yet equally baffling, continues to stir debate among Egyptologists. The mysterious narrow shafts, cut deep into the monument's core. These angular channels seem almost insignificant at first glance. 4 in total, each barely 8 inches wide. 2 rise from the king's chamber and 2 from the queen's chamber. The king's chamber shafts open to the exterior of the pyramid, while those from the queen's chamber stop abruptly, sealed within solid stone. No exit, no destination. When British explorer Wayneman Dixon first investigated the Queen's chamber shafts in 1872, he discovered a handful of small artifacts, a copper hook, a stone ball, and a fragment of cedar wood. Beyond these relics, the passages offered no clear answers. More than a century later, robotic probes ventured inside, one famously finding a miniature door, a polished block fitted with 2 copper handles. Behind it lay another void, and another block beyond that. The mystery only deepened. The prevailing theory among Egyptologists is symbolic, that these shafts were celestial conduits, precisely aligned with stars such as Sirius and Orion's belt. In ancient Egyptian belief, stars were not distant suns, but gateways to the divine, pathways through which the pharaoh's soul ascended to join the gods. The 45-degree angles of the shafts, their alignment with the night sky, and their location in the king's and queen's chambers all support this spiritual interpretation. Others, however, suggest more utilitarian origins, perhaps primitive ventilation shafts abandoned mid-construction. But this idea falters with the queen's chamber, whose sealed passages clearly lead nowhere. They seem to have been designed not to breathe air, but to direct purpose, inward, upward, or perhaps symbolically beyond. And yet, what fascinates scholars most is the precision. Nothing in the Great Pyramid is accidental. Every line, angle, and proportion carries meaning. So when a perfectly carved passage leads into solid stone, it almost demands a question: what lies beyond? This fascination with what's missing, what's sealed or incomplete, leads naturally to the most visible absence of all. Anyone standing before the Great Pyramid can see it instantly. The top is gone. Instead of narrowing to a perfect apex, the pyramid ends flat, its peak truncated. The missing piece is known as the pyramidion, or capstone, the gleaming summit that once crowned the structure. In other pyramids, pyramidia were small, highly polished stones, sometimes gilded to reflect the sunlight, representing the Benben stone. The mythical first mound of creation, the place where divine light first touched the earth. But the Great Pyramid's capstone, it's never been found. Some believe it was removed in antiquity, perhaps stolen along with the polished limestone casing that once made the pyramid shine white in the desert sun. Others think it may never have been installed at all, an intentional omission, a deliberate imperfection within a monument obsessed with perfection. One interpretation, both poetic and profound, suggests the missing capstone was symbolic. The pyramid itself may represent the soul's ascent toward the divine, its missing peak symbolizing the point beyond human reach, the realm of the gods. In this view, the pyramid wasn't just a tomb, but a map of spiritual progression, a monument that ends precisely where the material world gives way to the eternal. More speculative theories, often on the fringe, imagine the pyramidion as an instrument, a device crafted from exotic material that once held some long-lost function. There's no evidence to support these ideas, but they persist, fueled by the pyramid's enduring silence. After all, in a monument that has survived earthquakes, invasions and empires, the absence itself feels almost intentional, as though what's not there is just as meaningful as what remains. And then, from stone to script, another mystery emerges, not hidden underground but preserved in writing. Discovered in the 19th century near the Sphinx, the inventory stela is a dark granite slab inscribed with hieroglyphs, quietly displayed today in a Cairo museum. On the surface, it seems unremarkable, a record of offerings made by Pharaoh Khufu, builder of the Great Pyramid, to the Temple of Isis. But one line of text changed everything. The stela claims that Khufu did not build the Sphinx. He restored it. That single statement upends the conventional narrative. For centuries, mainstream Egyptology has attributed the Sphinx to Khufu's son, Khafre, aligning it with his pyramid complex. But if the stela is correct, it suggests the Sphinx already existed when Khufu reigned, potentially making it far older than the pyramids themselves. This idea has been championed by alternative researchers who point to erosion patterns on the Sphinx enclosure marks. They argue could only have been caused by rainfall, not desert wind. If true, that would push the monument's construction back thousands of years to a time when the Giza Plateau was fertile and wet. Mainstream scholars, however, largely reject this interpretation. They consider the inventory stela a later artifact, dating to around 600 BCE, long after the Old Kingdom. and likely a political tool created by priests seeking to associate their temple with a legendary pharaoh. The language, they argue, is too late, the claims too convenient. Yet the fact remains, no definitive proof exists for either side. There is no inscription marking when the Sphinx was carved, no document declaring its maker or purpose. The stela, controversial though it is, remains a quiet challenge to orthodoxy, a granite whisper suggesting that Egypt's greatest monument may be far older than we think. And so, beneath the blazing sands of Giza, we find a story still unfolding, part science, part myth and wholly mesmerizing. From radar scans hinting at hidden worlds, to sealed shafts, missing stones, and cryptic inscriptions, each discovery reminds us how much we have yet to learn. Whether these mysteries ultimately rewrite history or simply enrich it, one thing is certain: the Great Pyramid and the land surrounding it are far from fully understood. Perfect. Let's continue your script seamlessly from where it left off, keeping the tone cinematic, immersive, and balanced between mystery and grounded archaeology. Here's a 1,000-word continuation that carries the documentary-style narrative forward toward a powerful closing. For all that we've uncovered, the hidden chambers, the missing stones, the strange inscriptions, one truth keeps resurfacing. The Great Pyramid is not just a monument, it's a message left by people who understood something about the universe, geometry, and perhaps even the human soul that we are only beginning to rediscover. What drives our fascination isn't just the scale of the structure or the precision of its engineering. It's the feeling that somewhere within its design lies a secret, one that bridges the line between science and spirit, matter and meaning. Every block, every angle, every proportion appears deliberate, resonating with patterns that reflect celestial alignments, harmonic ratios, and mathematical constants known to define order in nature. Some researchers point out that the pyramid's proportions encode the number pi and even the golden ratio, phi, suggesting the builders possessed a mathematical sophistication well beyond their time. Others argue these alignments might be coincidental, the natural result of practical architecture taken to its limits. Yet whether intentional or accidental, the effect remains awe-inspiring. The Great Pyramid doesn't just stand upon the earth, it seems to mirror the cosmos itself. For ancient Egyptians, that was precisely the point. To them, architecture was not separate from theology. Temples were not only places of worship, but instruments of transformation. Geometry was sacred. To measure, to align, to build with perfect balance was to imitate the act of creation itself, to bring order to chaos, Ma'at over Isfet. The pyramid, then, wasn't just a tomb. It was a cosmic engine designed to unite heaven and earth, life and death, the human and the divine. And yet, thousands of years later, we still can't say for certain how they built it. We know the stones came from quarries miles away. We can trace the logistics of ramps, sleds, and manpower. But the deeper question, why this design, this precision, this alignment, remains unanswered. The Great Pyramid sits almost perfectly aligned to true north, deviating by mere fractions of a degree, an accuracy nearly impossible without advanced instruments. How did ancient builders achieve that? Some say the stars guided them. Others suggest they used shadows and the sun. But perhaps, like much of ancient knowledge, it was a mix of science and spirituality, so intertwined that separating one from the other misses the point entirely. Even in modern times, standing before the Great Pyramid produces a feeling that defies simple description. You sense it in the air, the weight of time, the geometry of silence, the hum of something eternal. Visitors often describe an inexplicable stillness, as though the structure itself vibrates at a frequency older than memory. Could this be mere psychology, or in the face of scale, or something more subtle? Acoustic engineers studying the king's chamber have found that its granite walls resonate at specific frequencies. When struck or even spoken within, the room amplifies sound in a way that feels almost deliberate. Was this coincidence, or did the builders understand principles of resonance and vibration lost to history? Some experiments have gone further, suggesting the pyramid's internal geometry focuses electromagnetic energy in ways modern science can measure, though how, and whether by design, remains unclear. These findings blur the line between physics and philosophy, between technology and temple. It is here, at the crossroads of fact and mystery, that the story of Giza becomes larger than archaeology. Because what we're really confronting isn't just a puzzle of stone, but a mirror, reflecting our own desire to understand where we come from, what we've lost, and what we still might become. Each new discovery seems to push the boundaries of what we thought we knew. The void above the Grand Gallery, the sealed shafts of the Queen's Chamber, the erosion lines of the Sphinx, the faint whispers of radar beneath the plateau. Every revelation reminds us that history isn't static, it's layered, evolving, alive. What we call the past may be far more complex than the linear timelines written in textbooks. Perhaps the ancients weren't primitive builders groping toward progress, but inheritors of knowledge passed down from a civilization even older, one erased by catastrophe or time. Maybe that's why myths of Atlantis, Zep Tepi, and the First Time persist, echoing faintly through the stones and sands of Egypt. But even without invoking lost worlds, the wonder remains. The very existence of the Great Pyramid, built more than 4,000 years ago with a precision that challenges modern engineers, is miracle enough. To this day, we cannot replicate it with the same materials, scale and accuracy, using the same methods they had. It stands not only as a monument to human ambition, but as a question, one that time itself has not answered. And what of the Hall of Records? Does it truly lie buried beneath the plateau, or is it metaphorical, a symbol for the hidden wisdom within humanity itself? Perhaps the greatest library of ancient knowledge isn't carved into stone, but encoded in the enduring curiosity that drives us to keep searching. Because every generation that stands before the Great Pyramid asks the same question in a new way. What if we've only just begun to remember? Recent discoveries remind us that archaeology is far from finished. Satellite imaging continues to reveal unknown sites across Egypt, hidden temples, buried roads, entire settlements swallowed by sand. Every new scan redefines our understanding of what once stood here. It's possible that in our lifetime, new excavations will confirm what the radar has hinted. Vast subsurface structures beneath Giza, untouched for thousands of years. If that happens, we may face not just new history, but new humility, a reminder that for all our progress, the ancient world still holds truths beyond our reach, but curiosity is a powerful thing. It refuses to rest, especially when the sands of time hide more questions than answers. For centuries, explorers, scholars, and dreamers have stood before the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, asking the same question: who really built these? Was it simply the genius of early engineers guided by faith and necessity? Or were they heirs to an even older tradition, one now almost completely erased by time? Every discovery at Giza, no matter how small, seems to hint at a story that stretches beyond the borders of recorded history. The precision of the pyramid's alignment to true north, accurate to a fraction of a degree, the astronomical geometry embedded in its base, and the almost supernatural scale of its construction all suggest a mastery of engineering that still defies explanation. It's no wonder that even the most disciplined minds occasionally glance at the pyramids and whisper, "How?" To put it in perspective, the Great Pyramid contains more than 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons. If we assume it was built in about 20 years, it would mean that workers had to set a block every 2 minutes, day and night, for 2 decades straight, a feat that pushes the limits of what we consider possible with Bronze Age tools. Ancient texts mention the use of ramps and manpower, but none of those explanations fully account for the precision achieved. The joints between blocks are so fine that in some places a sheet of paper cannot slide between them. And then there's the question of purpose. Was the Great Pyramid truly just a royal tomb? Curiously, no mummy has ever been found inside. The so-called sarcophagus in the king's chamber is empty, undecorated, and far too large to have been placed there after construction, meaning it must have been built in place before the ceiling stones were set. That suggests premeditation, a kind of architectural ritual. In the 20th century, French architect and engineer Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed that the pyramid might have been built using an internal spiral ramp, allowing stones to be moved upward inside the structure rather than along a massive external slope. 3D modeling supported the possibility, and scans in recent years have hinted at linear voids consistent with his theory. If confirmed, it would show that the Egyptians possessed not only extraordinary engineering skill, but also an intuitive grasp of geometry and logistics that rivals modern understanding. Yet, the more we learn, the more the mystery deepens. The pyramid is not just stone, it's proportion. Its height and base encode mathematical relationships that seem almost prophetic. The ratio of its perimeter to its height mirrors the ratio of the Earth's circumference to its radius. Its slope approximates the constant pi. Coincidence? Or was it deliberate, a reflection of cosmic order? To the ancient Egyptians, geometry wasn't just mathematics, it was theology. They believed that to measure and align was to participate in the divine act of creation itself, restoring harmony between heaven and earth. Perhaps that's why every angle, every alignment carries symbolic weight. The pyramid might have been less a tomb than a machine for eternity, a structure designed to bridge the mortal and the divine. But if we accept that the Egyptians built with symbolic precision, we must also ask where that knowledge came from. Many civilizations begin slowly, a gradual climb from crude huts to monuments. Egypt, however, seems to have appeared suddenly, fully formed, with language, architecture, and governance already sophisticated. How does a culture make that leap without a prior foundation? Some historians argue that earlier, lesser-known peoples, such as those of Nabataeans, a prehistoric site deep in the Sahara, may have laid the groundwork. Long before the pyramids, they erected stone circles aligned to the stars, suggesting that astronomical observation in Egypt began thousands of years earlier than the dynasties we know. If so, the builders of Giza might have inherited a legacy stretching back into the Stone Age. Others see a more global web of influence. Across the world, from the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the step pyramids of Mesoamerica, the same forms repeat. Vast, geometric monuments rising from flat landscapes, aligned to the heavens. Were these parallel inventions born from the shared human urge to reach the sky? Or do they whisper of a memory common to all, of a time when knowledge was universal and humanity spoke, however briefly, the same symbolic language? It's this pattern, the echo of design across continents, that fuels theories of lost civilizations. The idea that long before Egypt or Sumer, an advanced culture once flourished, passing fragments of its wisdom to the survivors of cataclysm. Plato's tale of Atlantis, whether myth or metaphor, fits that narrative perfectly, a civilization undone by its own hubris, its knowledge scattered like embers across the world. The notion might sound like fantasy, yet archaeology has a way of turning fable into fact. Only a century ago, Troy was considered a myth. Then Heinrich Schliemann unearthed its ruins. The same was true for the once legendary city of Ur, now a fully excavated metropolis of ancient Mesopotamia. Even Göbekli Tepe, buried deliberately more than 10,000 years ago, defied every assumption about when complex societies first emerged. So while Atlantis itself remains unproven, history reminds us that sometimes myths are memories wearing the costume of legend. Back in Egypt, new technology continues to peel away layers of the past. Infrared scanning, ground-penetrating radar, and cosmic ray imaging reveal anomalies, voids, and heat signatures that hint at more secrets waiting beneath the limestone. Archaeologists are now turning their eyes toward the area surrounding the Sphinx, searching for cavities that could match ancient descriptions of hidden chambers. While the Egyptian government remains cautious, restricting invasive exploration, digital archaeology is offering glimpses of what might one day be uncovered. And what if, someday, a chamber truly is found? A sealed hall untouched since antiquity? What would it contain? Stone tablets, scrolls, a map of forgotten epochs? Or perhaps something simpler, the undeniable proof that our ancestors were far more advanced and far more connected to the cosmos than we've dared to believe. Still, caution remains essential. For every genuine discovery, countless false claims surface. Stories of alien architects or anti-gravity machines hidden in hieroglyphs. These tales, while entertaining, often distract from the real miracle. That human beings, armed with little more than copper tools, mathematics and imagination, built monuments that have outlived empires. To marvel at that achievement does not require extraterrestrial intervention. It requires humility, to recognize that the ancient mind was capable of greatness equal to our own. Even so, mystery endures. The Great Pyramid stands as more than architecture. It is a mirror, reflecting whatever we bring to it. The skeptic sees engineering, the mystic sees revelation, the scientist sees data, the dreamer sees destiny. All of them, in their own way, are right. Perhaps that's the real power of Giza. It doesn't give answers. It invites questions, the kind that stretch across centuries and pull us toward wonder. Every block, every angle, every missing stone whispers that knowledge is never final. And that truth, like the desert sands, is always shifting. As the sun sets over the plateau, the golden light washes across the pyramids, the shadows stretching toward the Nile like dark fingers of time. The air hums with silence. Somewhere beneath, perhaps, chambers still sleep, filled not with treasure, but with the echo of humanity's oldest dream: to touch eternity. Maybe one day technology will open those sealed doors. Maybe we'll find nothing but dust and stone. Or maybe we'll find proof that the story of civilization began far earlier than we ever imagined. Until then, the Great Pyramid remains what it has always been, a question in the shape of a mountain. And as long as that question stands, our curiosity will keep leading us back to the sands of Giza, to stand beneath those timeless stones and wonder, not just how they were built, but why? Because the search for the past is never really about history. It's about us. It's about who we were, who we are, and who we still might become. So keep your eyes open. Keep asking. Keep digging. Not only into the ground, but into the heart of the mystery itself. Because somewhere, beneath the dust of forgotten ages, the truth still waits to be uncovered. And when it finally comes to light, one thing is certain: it will remind us that the past was never as distant as we thought. Stay curious,